Hello, everybody. Today we are going to look at session 10 of Bend 2. If you were not here last week when I taught session 9, that is an important lesson because it has the beginning part of the read aloud. There is a video about session 9 linked on the Week at a Glance. You really are responsible for watching that video and start doing that thinking work. For those of you who were here, this is just a review that we talked about how the setting can affect characters deeply, especially the mood of the setting. So when you think about the setting of your book, you're not just thinking about where it takes place or when it takes place. You're also thinking about that mood or atmosphere. And always ask yourself, what kind of a place is this? Is it a safe place? Is it a not safe place? What might be the mood of this place? Is it dangerous? Is it joyful? Is it overwhelming? Is it an aggressive mood or atmosphere? Think about those things. Also, while you are reading, you're not just thinking about setting, but you're still thinking about your characters and especially how the setting might affect the characters. Today's lesson is a continuation where we start looking really closely at the precise language authors use to describe the setting. What words are they using? And you may have, so when you think about setting, it is helpful to pay attention to the author's specific language. This helps you grasp the mood, atmosphere, the norms of the setting, the tempo of the place. Those things can matter in a deep and hidden way to a character. You may have heard of the word connotation or connotative language. And those are words that are symbolic or evoke an emotional response. So when somebody says, I'm feeling blue, you don't necessarily think that they have a blue face, but rather that they're probably feeling kind of sad or gloomy. Let's take a look at this one. You're going shopping for a new pair of tennis shoes. Would you rather purchase the shoes that are cheap or inexpensive? Think about that. And why? They pretty much mean the same thing. Cheap and inexpensive are synonyms, but I would probably pick the inexpensive shoes over the cheap shoes because for me, cheap has a negative connotation. Maybe the price is cheap, but maybe the quality is also cheap. When I think of the word inexpensive, I think, okay, it didn't cost a lot. Maybe it was on sale. Maybe it's really good quality. Maybe I'm getting a great bargain for these good quality shoes. So maybe you thought, my dad loved calling himself cheap, so he'd be happy to purchase the cheap shoes. He didn't care. Whereas most of us, I think, we might think more that the inexpensive shoes don't sound quite as negative as the cheap shoes. I hope that makes sense to you. All right, let's take a look back at the story Popularity and think about the words that the author used to describe the setting. I'm going to start right here. While the two Allens faced off, I looked across the black tar and asphalt at a crowd of boys who were making more noise and seemed to be having more fun than anyone else on the playground. These were the popular boys, and in the center of this group stood their leader, Sean Owens. So you have to remember, Will was with the two Allens picking clovers. So he was probably in grass. But the author didn't say, I looked across the grass, because that might be kind of positive. But instead, he said, I looked across the black tar and asphalt because those boys were on the playground. They're having a great time. And yes, the playground is made of asphalt. Black tar. When I think of the word tar, I know that it's something that is really sticky. So I'm wondering if black tar and asphalt are symbolic in that it seems like this setting for Will at this moment is dark and sticky. It is a dark and sticky place for Will. This is a place where he might feel stuck. He's looking across to where the others are. He's far away from them, and he's stuck where he is. So, what did we do? I returned to the text and I reread a part that I thought was important to the setting, because you should be thinking about the setting in your book, and maybe you have to go back, flip back a chapter or two and see if you can find sections in your book where the setting seems to be important. And then I read it carefully and I looked for some specific words that could be meaningful to the setting. These are the words that the author put in the book. And I thought about what those words might convey, the mood, the feeling, the atmosphere. And then I thought, what might this tell me about the character's relationship to this place? Because we are looking at how the setting affects the characters. So, for example, weather can often be symbolic. Authors often put weather in their stories, in their books, for a reason. It's not just by chance. So pay attention to anything that describes the weather. An author might describe the day as being full of rays of sunshine, and maybe it's a sunny day, but it could also mean that it's a joyful day. There's some excitement in the air. There's some hope in the air. Or maybe the author might describe the day as stormy. This could symbolize anger, darkness, depression. So that mood or atmosphere might be kind of negative, kind of rumbling in the air. Not just strictly about the weather, but also that mood or atmosphere. This is the anchor chart so far. To investigate the influence of setting on characters, ask, what kind of place is this? Consider the mood of the place, and notice how the author's language evokes emotions and images. If you have an emotional response, that's because of the atmosphere or the mood that the author has created in that setting. So when you're doing the work today, go back to places in your books that have important setting passages. Look for words or phrases that seem important or suggestive to the mood. And once you have words, write those words in your notebook and why those words seem to matter. What do those words tell you about the setting, mood, and character? And it's try again. You'll have some success. I'm going to show you some examples of student notebook pages. You could set it up as a table, a description of the mood or the atmosphere and how it affects the characters. You could do it along a line where atop of the line you describe the mood or the atmosphere, and under the line how it affects the characters. You could do bullet point notes. Here's some notes from a book called The 100 Dresses. And the setting is a school, but I want you to think about what kind of school this might be. Room 13, so I guess that's the classroom. Room 13 is the kind of place where the rough boys who make bad grades sit in one corner with mud and dirt on the floor. The kids who get good grades sit on the front row. The day is always started by reciting the Gettysburg Address in Union. For several days, nobody notices Wanda is gone. So when I think about the actual physical setting, the place, it's a school, it's a class, but it makes me wonder, mud and dirt on the floor, so it doesn't have actual floors? Maybe it's kind of an outdoor space? I'm not sure. And then when I read, the day is always started by reciting the Gettysburg Address in Union, that makes me think that this story takes place in the past, that it's certainly not something in the 2020s. And then this last line just really kind of blew me away. For several days, nobody notices Wanda is gone. What kind of place is that where nobody seems to know or care that somebody is missing? And then, the rough boys have to sit in one corner and the good grades sit in another place. So it doesn't seem like a very welcoming, caring setting. Now, you're probably familiar with what book this one is about. So, setting in the country, on a farm, there's a hog house. Pa wears overalls, there's grass, there's an apple tree, a barn, and animals. So, those are just some words about the general setting. And then Wilbur, if you haven't figured out, this is Charlotte's Web, and we're talking about Wilbur the pig. So, he has two homes. He has a yard, and he also has to spend time in the barn. So look at the words that describe the yard. It's under an apple tree, big box with straw and a door, and he gets to play with Fern. So when I look at those descriptions of that place, I think, what kind of a place is this? Well, it seems pretty peaceful, seems pretty calm, seems comfortable. He's kind of happy. He gets to play with Fern. So it seems like a very pleasant atmosphere. Now we take a look at Zuckerman's barn. It's smelly. There's a manure pile. There are other animals, cows, horses, sheep. There's tools. There's a food trough and a pig pen. When I read all of those words about the barn, I think, okay, well, it's smelly and there's this manure pile, but all these different animals probably making all kinds of noise. And then the tools and the food trough, it sounds like it might be a little crowded, stifling. And he's in this pig pen, so he's kind of penned in. He can't get out. He doesn't have the freedom that he might have under the apple tree. Here's another example of 3 different student notebooks. They were reading the book Peak, and it's kind of hard to read all of these notebook notes, but you can see the one over here on the left, they really talk about the weather. And they've highlighted the word intense as the mood of that setting and a sense of urgency, and they've written a paragraph. In this one, early in the book, the readers learn, and then it seems like a dangerous place. It's a very cold place, a little drawing of what's going on in this story. And the author said that the colors represent the feeling and the setting. Here, this student has created a table and the weather and why it matters in the story. So there's many different ways to organize your notebook and do that important jotting. The key is that you are actually doing it, because this is a deep study of character. Okay, so this is just a page that if you're not quite sure how to cite the text or how to explain what you think based on citing the text. And I think that is in my slide presentation that you can take a look at. And that is the end of session 10. Like I said, if you weren't here for session 9, it is your responsibility to watch the video for session 9. Have a great time. Read, think, and jot.